Wookiees was bustling more than usual on a Sunday morning, thanks to a new pop-up event that celebrated and commemorated the Event Horizon event, otherwise known as Ihi, funnily enough to Sho Sero. He stood by the large gate staring at his watch, whiling away the seconds that ticked. He had been standing there for the past 5 minutes, wondering what took Haru Todoroki so long to get here. A resigned sigh escaped his lips, knowing that the teen was probably being swarmed by the public, most likely the girls if he ever stepped foot on the street. It was one thing Sho was jealous of if he had to be envious of anything. Still, a Todoroki was a Todoroki. Sho stared up at the sky, watching the clouds slowly pass the same way he felt staring at paint dry. Bored. Utterly bored. He had exhausted most of his playlist on his phone, and nothing much caught his attention long enough to keep him preoccupied. The only thing that crossed his mind every now and then were the large cardboard cutouts that stood in a line at the large pop-up event that stretched as long as the mall did in the public walkways. They depicted all the heroes involved in Ihi years ago, almost capturing them as if they were still in battle with uniforms and outfits tattered or torn. It was the usual lineup of Deku, Ground Zero, and Shoto being favourites, before his eyes scanned past all familiar heroes onto his father, outfit torn and his helmet cracked. Cellophane had grown in popularity during the time, sometimes causing Sho some grief when others would ask him questions about his father, but now he felt proud to be the son of Hanta Sero, a pro-hero in his own right, amongst the infamous others. Still, his mother, you, were never shown every year, having made yourself scarcely involved. Sho knew better how you were integral in the event, hearing your side of the story growing up, and sworn to secrecy never to tell another soul. It was a secret he kept under wraps, almost tortuously, wanting to celebrate your victories. But with another sigh of resignation, he eyed Cellophane's cutout, proud to be the son of parents who, by all accounts, were saviors.
Sorry I'm late,
apologized a voice behind him before Sho turned back towards the gate, finding Haru with a hoodie covering his head. Sho inspected him, skeptical at the suspicious look Haru decided to dress in, arms crossed with a playful smirk.
You should be. I never saw you as the tardy type,
replied Sho with a grin.
But why the hoodie?
I'm undercover, at least until the fan club leaves.
Sho snorted a little at the response, returning back to his earlier thoughts about the teenage boy. Despite being in their final junior year, he was surprised to find Haru already swarmed with admirers.
Consider yourself lucky,
commented Sho with a pout.
Not many guys get the chance to talk or even look at a girl without getting the stink eye.
Wanna trade places?
Sarcastically asked Haru, half serious to offer.
Nah, I'd like to control the swarm if I could.
Haru stared deadpan towards Sho before digging his pockets into his hoodie, keeping himself hidden as best as he could to avoid any line of sight. Meanwhile, Sho turned towards the gate, ready to finally spend the day at the event along with visiting other stores, until a familiar tall boy caught his eye, as did Haru's from behind the hoodie. In the distance amongst the crowd, clad in down-to-earth fashion in the summer heat, strode Satoshi Shinso with his eyes on his phone, responding to a text he received not long ago. He grimaced while he responded, a little terse with a pout before his eyes turned upwards to land on both the young elementary boys ahead, minutely slowing his pace in surprise, before he recomposed and approached them, pocketing his phone into his back pocket.
Hey, Shinso!
Chirped Sho with a smile.
Here for the event?
Sadly, yes.
Dryly replied the teenage boy while he ruffled his lavender hair.
Dad plans on visiting soon, so we agreed to meet up here. A persona appearance? That's rare,
commented Haru, catching Satoshi's incredulous eye at the hoodie he wore. Immediately, he pulled the hoodie from Haru's head without a care or thought, causing a rising panic in the boy, turning his eye through the crowd for familiar unwanted faces.
Relax. No one's going to show,
reassured Satoshi with that monotone expression.
I told him to spend time in Shibuya.
The sigh that escaped Haru was one of relief before he swallowed the words Satoshi just said, realizing the extent of his actions despite the niceties behind them. Sho gasped at the response, a little playful before he poked into Satoshi's chest accusingly with a smug grin.
You know you're not supposed to do that, right?
He cheekily reprimanded the older boy, even though they were a year apart.
They were starting to hurt my brain,
explained Satoshi dryly, unperturbed by Sho's poking.
Thanks anyway,
sighed Haru with a smile while he opened his hoodie, feeling more relaxed than he did earlier. Satoshi only shrugged, still aloof about using his quirk in public, figuratively speaking. His reputation preceded him too often for him to have a care, at least for today.
Still, your dad's going to show?
Continued Haru while he fixed his hair, ruffled a little from hiding inside the hoodie.
Yeah, he lost a bet,
admitted Satoshi with a grimace.
He's meeting up with Chargebolt for the event today.
Chargebolt? Really?
Questioned Sho, a little excited than normal, his face too close to Satoshi for his liking.
Aw man, if I knew I would have at least worn something less plain.
Satoshi's grimace deepened at Sho's excitable nature. He briefly forgot Sho's deep knowledge of all the pro-heroes that graced Musatafu, following every event and convention that would possibly have their appearance or otherwise celebrate their victories. He was just as bad as Amy. Except in Satoshi's perspective, at least she was intelligent. Finding both Haru and him at Wookiees only solidified that notion, knowing that Sho would have invited Haru to visit the event so he wouldn't be alone. For the few years he knew the boy, he questioned why he wouldn't just call the heroes anyway, seeing that they were family friends.
Say, Shinso?
Piped Haru, catching Satoshi's deadpan stare.
If your dad and Chargebolt are showing up, does that mean...
He had no chance to finish his question, watching Satoshi's eyes perk as if he heard a sound from behind. His eyes followed Satoshi's, turning to stare into the crowd, soon spotting a familiar head of hair bouncing and gallivanting through.
Hey, Okimi.
Called Satoshi, still dry and tired after recognizing the blonde.
Hi, Okimi!
Yelled Haru with a smile, spotting her in the nick of time and waving his hand in the air as if that would also attract her attention. Meanwhile, Sho, still up close to Satoshi in all his excitement, stared quizzically with a questionable brow before he too cocked his head to see what all the excitement was about.
Who's Okimi?
Sho's voice trailed into a whisper before his eyes laid upon a young beauty skipping towards the boys with her long, almost platinum blonde hair bouncing about in a high ponytail. She was dressed to the nines for a summer outing, loud and bright as if she were sunlight incarnate. Her smile was radiant, and her eyes sparkled. She looked to be the only person he watched, soon finding something all too familiar amongst her hair. Black strands that trailed along her fringe, almost like Kaneko! She cheered before she jumped and hugged the tall boy from behind, her arms wrapping around his neck that almost knocked him over.
Will you stop calling me that?
Grimaced Satoshi, relinquishing to Okimi's loud outburst.
It's great that both of our dads are making a public appearance today. They hardly get any spotlight after Deku and Ground Zero. Even Red Riot grabs some popularity points before they do.
Satoshi turned a judgmental eye towards the girl, still allowing her to almost hang from his shoulders despite her weight starting to become heavier. He wasn't the strongest person in the world, but he slowly was building his strength, if not by his own accord, then definitely due to Okimi's random acts of hugging and affection.
Really? That's all you're thinking about?
He questioned sardonically, his tone never unfazing Okimi's cheerful demeanor. She only smiled, chuckling under her breath, unable to contain her excitement for the day ahead. It wasn't long until she noticed Haru standing before Satoshi, his hand still waving at her as if he was patiently waiting for her to become aware of her company.
Oh, Haru! Is your dad showing up?
She asked, still on her one train of thought. Something she was often known for, at least in Haru's mind.
Nice to see you too, Okimi.
Greeted Haru with a smile.
I'm actually here with...
He turned to Sho, realizing the boy had not said one word since the encounter, staring at Okimi who still hung on Satoshi's back. Haru saw the expression on his face, dumbfounded and speechless, almost in awe of the sight. Quick glances between the group caught Haru's mind, smiling a little smug at Sho before he walked up to him, grabbing hold of his shoulder to snap him out of his little reverie.
Wait a minute. You both haven't met, have you?
Asked Haru, eyeing Sho and finally grabbing his attention. Sho stood silent, unable to form the words he wanted to say from his mouth before spotting Okimi release her hold from Satoshi. She turned to him, curious and a little oblivious of his nervousness, approaching him head-on, nonchalantly. The both of them stood before each other for a moment, the quiet almost deafening in Sho's ears before he felt them burn with an embarrassing heat.
Good morning!
He blurted loudly, unintendedly while being met by Okimi's curious eyes.
My name's... Sero?
Sarah?
Interrupted Okimi, catching Sho a little off guard and embarrassingly as such, feeling his heart almost leap out from his chest.
As in... cellophane?
Sho's eyes widened, unable to form a response to Okimi's very simple questions. Was she asking if he was cellophane? No, that was dumb, stupid, she wouldn't be dense, he thought. No one this beautiful would be that thick. As in stupid, not thick like... His thoughts were getting away from him, uttering non-verbal mutters and sounds until the light in Okimi's eyes sparkled, her excitement brewing until they spilled out with joy.
Oh my god, it's so nice to meet you!
She cooed, hopping on the spot.
Finally, I have a face attached to the name! Dad told me so much about how your parents helped Mom.
Really?
Timidly responded Sho, earning an affirmative hum from Okimi.
Your parents are heroes in my book. Without them, my mom wouldn't be here.
Sho felt the heat in his cheeks that traveled from his ears, hunching his shoulders a little at how close Okimi stood before him, unperturbed by his embarrassment.
You should join us today!
Chirped Okimi with a beaming smile.
Dad's going to lead a panel this afternoon. I'm sure he'd be happy to meet you.
It suddenly hit Sho like a large wave that crashed into him when all the pieces began to fit in his head. Those black strands, the blonde hair, the realization that Satoshi knew her very well than most people, and now mentioning her father was running a panel meant...
Oh, sorry. I never properly introduced myself.
Commented Okimi while she knocked on her head with her knuckles.
I'm Okimi Kaminari. Chargebolt's my dad.
She spoke so casually it still rendered Sho speechless, taken aback by her radiant confidence and her bubbly nature. He didn't know what to say, only just stared at her, succumbing to the beaming smile she exuded while she continued to talk, soon grabbing hold of his hands in excitement that traveled into his being. The sight was, at least in Satoshi's eyes, nauseating. seeing Okimi bubbly take in Sho's presence while he fawned over her. His eyes glanced towards Haru, spotting that soft smile he always pulled wherever he was while watching the spectacle of the two meeting for the first time.
You did this on purpose,
commented Satoshi dryly, finding Haru's dark silver eyes turn onto him with a somewhat innocent grin.
He needed a little push,
explained Haru.
What are friends for?
Satoshi deeply sighed, contemplating on what headaches he'll have to deal with in the future, while witnessing the scene at hand. But for Sho, he stood in awe and embarrassment while his hands were clasped in Okimi's, filled with joy and glee to have met him for the first time. He wondered what stories they would share together, and wondered how much Okimi knew of his parents' involvement. Though he was sworn to secrecy by Yu, there was a glimmer of hope that he could share them with Okimi, who continued to loudly profess her admiration for Cellophane and Volpone, two heroes who rescued her mother those years ago. Sho's warmth in his cheeks changed over time, from embarrassment to happiness, joyful that serendipitously he found someone he could talk to, share with, and hopefully become a part of their lives with.
Come on, I'll show you the best parts of the event. The coordinator gave me a sneak peek before today,
chirped Okimi while she pulled on Sho's hand to lead him into Wookiees. Sho was taken by surprise but allowed her to lead the way, following after her vibrant smile and her cheerful demeanor. She was like the sun, blinding and yet warm, pulling him along for the ride while the other two followed in tow.